and send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
Hello, a very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. My name is Edmond, your host. On Spectrum tonight, what are the implications of President Museveni's directive on land matters? On Monday, President Museveni issued new directives on land transactions, halting evictions of tenants forthwith, saying the corrupt who are manipulating the legal process will not be allowed to render millions of Ugandans homeless. He blamed the ongoing evictions on property developers who have recently amassed wealth deviously through corrupt means and have contempt for the peasants. He argued that the Land Amendment Act 2008 criminalizes eviction of tenants and sets a prison term of 7 years. The president added that under the same law, the only ground for a landlord to evict a tenant is after the tenant has failed to pay the annual ground rent. The president constituted a team headed by the State Minister for Lands, Edmond, to comb all areas where people are being illegally evicted. He, however, noted that evictions that are within the law or based on a verified court order will stand. This directive comes at a time when land wrangles have intensified in the country, especially in the central region, northern Uganda, and the eastern region. Experts in land matters and the law have, however, argued that this directive is questionable and a vote of no confidence in the judiciary that has a fully fledged land division to specifically handle land matters. The president has also been accused of exhibiting double standards on grounds that he is supporting investors to take over land from communities in some regions and protecting other communities. Some people have added that this directive bears political connotations. Now, land is one of the most critical factors of production in Uganda, and given the rapid population growth, its management and utilization is becoming more controversial. It is reported that Uganda will soon suffer from a housing crisis, and some real estate developers, some of whom acquired land in the central region to set up more housing units, are some of those that have been blocked. Some landowners argue that it is their right to sell land as long as they can compensate tenants to relocate to other places. They wonder how a tenant and a landlord can share almost equal rights on land. So tonight we look at this presidential directive, its implications, and how landowners and experts perceive it. Our guests tonight, Honorable Daudi, Migereko, Minister for Lands, Housing and Urban Development. We expect him to join us shortly, though in the meantime we have his spokesman, the spokesman for the ministry, Mr. Dennis Obo. You're most welcome, Mr. Dennis Obo.
Thank you. Good evening, viewers. Listeners, sorry.
Viewers, because we're also on the internet, you can get us a video of Spectrum of YouTube. We're also joined by Mr. Peter Mulira, senior lawyer. You're most welcome, Mr. Mulira, senior counsel.
Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be here.
Mr. Mulira, is the President's directive rooted in law?
Well, first of all, I want to make one comment. It seems that the President's statement is being doctored and changed every now and then. What we read in the papers concerned illegal evictions at one time, and then in the next breath, the President said all evictions are banned from now on. But the statement you have just read talks about the President saying that all lawful or legal evictions and evictions ordered by courts of law will stand. This is not what was stated in the press. But if that is what the President said, then I stand by him that yes, there are areas where evictions are lawful and areas where evictions are illegal. And the issue is to identify what is illegal and what is legal. And once we get to identify those two, to make those distinctions, we'll be able to move forward to know whether or not the President was right.
So who's a tenant?
A tenant, I don't want to get into complicated legal terminologies, but a tenant can be of two types. You can't be a tenant in my house.
Well, let's talk about land specifically.
Yeah, but for the benefit of our listeners, I think you can be a tenant in my house. But Section 31 of the registration of the Land Act creates what it calls tenancy by occupancy. Tenancy by occupancy. And the person who falls in that category is a tenant. you can call him a statutory tenant because his term is given to him by the provision of law. And that person is the person who came on the land by virtue of Busura and Mvuja law in the case of Buganda, and
in
1928, or the Ankole Land Act of 1937 and the Toro Land Act of 1937, plus a person who was on the land for a period of 12 years prior to the coming into Constitution, that is 1995. So those are tenants who are protected under the Land Act, and they can only be evicted under certain circumstances which are provided for under the law.
So what's
do you want to know?
Well, we can get into those details later, but what's going to happen? Paint for us a scenario. With this directive, how much force does it have in practice?
How much force? Which one?
What's going to happen after the president spoke?
The president spoke. I don't know. I would like to hear from members of the Ministry of Lands to tell us what actually the intention is, because when I look at it, the law is quite clear. When we come to discuss the law is quite clear as to what amounts to illegal eviction and what amounts to lawful eviction. And I don't see why the president should be dragged into making a political statement when the law is quite clear.
Mr. Dennis Obo, spokesman for that important ministry, why did the president speak out on such a matter?
Thank you very much. Well, the issue of illegal evictions has actually been with us, and these evictions, we have documented evidence of these evictions, the illegal land evictions. They have taken place specifically in areas where the landlord-tenant relationship is, central Buganda, in Buganda, western region. We have also had some evictions reported in northern Uganda. Now, the biggest issue is that the law is there, it's in place actually. But what is happening is that we have not actually followed procedures, we have not implemented the law. We have had a new category of people who have come in, bought land from the old landlords, the traditional landlords, who actually recognized this relationship between the landlords and tenants, lived harmoniously. Now this new breed have come in, they want to utilize the land for economic purposes. They cannot stand these people on the land. So what has happened is that they have taken matters into their hand and unilaterally decided to evict these people. An act of one landlord actually on average will cause displacement of between 50 and 200 households. This has caused issues of homelessness. It has security perspectives. It also touches on the livelihoods of the majority of the people who are actually the peasantry, the tenants. The evidence has been seen. In Wakiso, we have had sensitizations together with Honorable Seninde, and this is where we discovered what is on the ground. If I may give examples, areas Nachigalala, in Bulwanyi, Muguluka, Bukuku, Sazi, Jungo, Chiumu, Nampungwe, Pungwe. So many places in Wakiso, it has actually been too much. Now, who has been evicting? There is actually that category of the new, the real estate.
So the capitalist.
Yes, those, very many of those. We have also had cases of non-citizens. They come in, instead of acquiring land through investment authority, they actually go and acquire. It's actually, we are shocked to find that non-citizens have also got papers, Milo titles, have Milo transfers which they want to transfer, and yet
that's illegal.
The law is clear, the constitution is clear that they cannot own. Then we also have a number of law firms that are listed also. These two have also come in, they have used the law, found an ignorant population who don't know what the law is, taken them, imprisoned them. By the time they come out, the land is gone. So it's a very big problem. We are living with it, and for sure the majority of the peasants are suffering.
Let's talk about only one case that I know that many. Let's talk about Amuru. Is Amuru, what's going to happen in Amuru? Many families are affected.
Now in Amuru, Amuru is customary land. Now this one
owned by the community.
Yes, and that is, well, with that one, what I know for Amuru is that case is actually in court. I really don't know if I should be talking about it here, but what I know is that that land, it was established that it had actually been degazetted and handed over to Uganda Land Commission, and Uganda Land Commission had issued leases on it. So it is in case. We have to hear what the Court of Appeal will pronounce itself. But that one is a different scenario from what has been happening here.
So that one is government dispossessing this war, technically speaking?
No, it's not government dispossessing, because there were actual instruments showing that that land had actually been degazetted.
Well, customer land, government knows it's owned by the community.
You know,
but then it goes through the process.
Yeah, you know, government,
like non-citizens have done, probably.
Government owns, government's land is in three categories. There is that one that is surveyed and titled. There is that one that is surveyed but wasn't titled, and then there is that one also that wasn't surveyed and is not titled. So it still remains government land, and as long as we can prove we have the statutory instruments degazetting it, handing it over to Uganda Land Commission, really it's government land.
But you say it's customary land, and then you say it's government land.
I say it falls in an area where most of the land is customary tenure.
So who owned it in the first place, government or the communities?
No, it is owned by government.
And what claim do the communities have over it?
The claim is because that land, it remained actually unutilized for a very long time. So people came back, started utilizing the land.
After the war?
Yes. And when government, by the time government was coming to claim its land, well, it found people who were using it, and that's where the dispute began.
You say people came back. They had lived there before?
People came back from the camps. And they were not living there before. It was government that was using it before.
All right. Mr. Mulira, talk to us about, give us a clearer picture about the places that you're familiar with, Uganda, Wamkori, and Toro. Yes. Give us some deeper background. What used to happen before the tenure system, the 1928 to 1975, the tenure system that we had before independence, after independence, the 1975 decree. Take us through those tenure systems.
Mr. Opo is right that a lot of the evictions which are taking place within the central region. But my disappointment is that the government has not bothered to find out to find out the causes of these evictions.
Yes.
Because he has mentioned the areas where evictions have taken place in Uganda. Nachigalala, Bulwanyi, Jungo, and there is a cause. You know, the new Entebbe highway has caused a lot of evictions because investors all of a sudden have realized that the land along that route is going to be very valuable. So when you talk about central region, it's not a general thing. You don't hear of evictions in Masaka. You don't hear of evictions in Gomba. Why is it here? Let us concentrate on the areas where they are taking place. The other areas where you have a lot of evictions is Kayunga. Again, because that area is fertile, it is good for animal husbandry, and a lot of investors investors want to grab that land and use it for that purpose. So let us first focus on why evictions are taking place and where. And you'll find the answers in the fact that it is economic greed. 2, I want to say that Mr. Obo is talking about peasants being evicted. I want to say that there is no society where land is free for all. Prior to independence, we used to have rules, customary rules, which governed access to land. For example, for Buganda, and maybe you'll permit me to speak specifically about Buganda because I am more experienced there. In Buganda, it is known that you don't go on a mile owner's land without his permission. But at the same time, it is a principle which is respected by every Muganda that everybody has a right to live on land. Everybody has a right in Buganda to live on land, with only 2 exceptions: a witch and a criminal. If you are a witch, I have a right not to accept you to come on my land.
How do you identify a witch? You look at
Abalogo, they know them, Abalogo. But having said that, the law required you to respect the owner's rights. He is the one who identifies where you are going to go, and your area is demarcated. And it is known in terms of size and in terms of extent. But what we have today is that people just move on my owner's land and settle there and say, I'm building. I've just been to Mukono with a group of friends, and they were shocked. Houses are coming up
on their own land.
On my land.
On your land.
Houses, permanent houses. Now, are these peasants?
Maybe they're building for you. Let's get some clarity here, Mr. Mulira. How the peasants and the landlords. There are people like you who own large tracts of land. There are people who are poor, communities who are poor.
Yes.
They have, they raise their children, population grows, so they move on to tracts that you are not using. You are young, you are landing next to the lake. They move on.
I have told you, I was brought up in a culture which holds that everybody has a right to be on the land.
Yes.
If you come to me to ask for Kibanya, I have every obligation to give you that piece.
How much would you give for it?
There is a limit. It is me who decides. We negotiate. It's a contractual thing.
Well, let's look at the historical practice.
This is what I'm talking about. Historically, you come and ask the owner to settle you, and the owner determines what will be given to you. And the rules which govern this were codified in 1928 under Busura and Fujolo. Today we talk about Chibanja, this is my Chibanja, without defining what a Chibanja means. In Buganda, a Chibanja has 3 meanings. You have what is known as a domestic Chibanja, which does not exceed 1 acre. You have what is known as a contractual Chibanja, economic Chibanja, which cannot exceed 3 acres, and beyond 3 acres, you have a contractual Chibanja. And what are the rights? When you have a domestic Chibanja given to you by the minor owner, you acquire an interest in land, and you cannot be evicted because it is permanent. And when you die, your wife, your widow, no, the law says the widow or your heir inherits it. Yes. So that's an interest in land.
1 acre.
And in fact, because it is so permanent and indispensable, in 1965, the Buganda Economic Commission, part of the then Buganda government, recommended that this kind of Kibanja should be abolished, so that everybody who had such a Kibanja is given full title deeds, so that we get rid of that type. But unfortunately, the Buganda government was removed in 1966 before the law was passed. Now, when you come to the economic Kibanja, what it means is that if I have a domestic Kibanja, I'm allowed
to get another 2 acres.
No, to cultivate up to 3 acres. economic crops,
Yes.
like coffee, cotton. But I do not acquire an interest in land. My interest is limited
To 1 acre.
No, to the crops.
To the crops, yes.
We have left the domestic land.
Yes.
We are now talking about the
Economic.
economic. Up to 3 acres, I cultivate coffee, cotton, and if the owner wants to take it away from me, he has to compensate me for the crops.
To the extent of the crops.
Yes, not the land.
Not even the trees. You don't even
Not
have
at
trees. You
all,
can't fell
not
a
at
single
all,
tree.
not at all. Only crops which I've put there through my own effort are compensated for. Beyond that 3 acres, you are allowed only to cultivate or use it with the permission of the owner, and I call it the contractual chibanje. But now when we talk about chibanje, somebody comes and says, 8 acres is my kibanje. Now I'm asking you, if I know that a kibanje is limited to 1 acre, and I evict you from the 9 acres, is it an illegal eviction? It is not. So where am I driving at? I'm saying that yes, people are being evicted, but quite unfortunately, the starting point should be for the government. Mr. Obo talks about the 200 people who are evicted in Jungo.
Yes.
Are they lawfully on the land
We
or
need to have an
not?
audit.
Why are you supporting people who do not respect other people's rights? We should start by identifying whether Mulira went on that land lawfully or he's just illegal.
Right.
But I'm not saying that he should be thrown out if he's not lawful. His presence should be legalized.
All right, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. Tonight, what are the implications of President Museveni's directive on land matters? We'll go for a break. We'll be back. Please stay tuned.
You are losing your MTN number if you don't register by the 28th of February 2013. They're going to cut it off with Papa, and you'll be there. Contactless, numberless, identityless. Basically, you'll be finished. Do you know what it means when you lose the number you have had for years? The number everyone knows. If I were you, I would go and register now. The time is up. Go and register now. I said register before the 28th of February 2013. Register now.
Make time now and register your MTN SIM cards before 28th of February 2013. Dial *197# to check your registration status.
MTN. Everywhere you go.
Some say I was born to run. Maybe I was. But there are times when even I feel I can't go any further. I am still in Kiproti, and when I feel I can't go any further, I simply reach for my Aquasipi. That gets me going again.
Aquasipi, the gift of rejuvenation, straight from Mother Nature to you. Every bottle of crystal clear Aquasipi water is ultra filtered, UV treated, and ozonated. Aquasipi, keep sipping and go for gold.
Excuse me, what is this 300 shillings on my bill for?
That is for the tinted candles, madam.
And this 100 shillings?
That is for the air conditioning.
And this 200 shillings?
For the blue walls, ma'am.
I can't believe this!
Why pay for what you don't use or ask for? That's why we at Standard Chartered are introducing the Easy Go account, the first current account of its kind that gives you complete control of your banking charges. For more details, visit a Standard Chartered branch or call 0414 340077.
Would you like to leave me a tip, please?
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Back on Spectrum tonight, what are the implications of President Museveni's directive on land matters? Our guests tonight, Mr. Peter Mulira, Senior Counsel, well-known, respected lawyer in Kampala. We are also joined by Mr. Dennis Obo, spokesman for the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, sitting in for the Minister who is expected to join us later. You two will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. Mr. Obo, talk to us about the practical implications of the President's directive. What exactly can we expect to see in the coming days?
You know, we talked about the causes of these evictions. We have actually identified these causes in this region. The biggest one is the lack of knowledge of the rights and obligations, especially of the tenants. Well, some landlords might know, but the majority of tenants don't know. Now, another cause has been the deliberate violation of the law by the landowners. Well, they deliberate.
The landlords, the big.
Yes, the landlords. Well, some, not all. There are some individual unscrupulous ones who usually take the law into their hand. I will also not deny it's also partly the poor implementation of the law on our side. We have put in place a number of things. We should have issued the certificates of occupancy to tenants so that they have some documentation to show. But again, remember, to issue this certificate of occupancy, the landlord has got to consent. Okay? So these tenants usually have no paper at all to show that they have been there, they are lawful or bona fide, you know. So other categories come and hide in them, licenses, those illegal occupants, the trespassers, all hide in them. So I think if we had issued these certificates of occupancy, we should have had.
When can we expect to have them? It costs a lot of money.
Well, if these landlords can...
Can I interrupt?
Yes, please do.
Those certificates are unconstitutional. And the minute the first one is issued, we are going to... Because once I have a certificate of title, it is protected by law, by the Constitution. And the law, section 176 of the Act, protects my title. But now when you give a certificate of occupancy to Mr. Obo, what size are you going to give? What size is it going to be?
Well, but you already said 135 acres.
But they have not taken advice from us. Are you going to give him 5 acres of my land? So you have first to sit down with people who are on the ground and work out the modalities. We recommended to the President when Uganda Landowners Association meeting. We told him what we are doing in our own areas. We give you, say, half an acre if we recognize you as a lawful tenant. And we ask you to buy yourself and get a title.
But the President says this is not acceptable.
Let him say it. The law allows it.
So what are we going to do about it?
Well, I don't agree with Mr. Mulira that these certificates are unconstitutional.
Yes.
I think, well, it provides for the issuance of certificates of occupancy in the Land Act, Section 33 of the Land Act. It also provides for the transactions that can be carried out. But the most important thing, it says that it must be given, the tenant applies to the registered owner before it's issued. So you have to get that consent of
the owner.
Yes. And there are those landlords who are actually living harmoniously with their tenants. So there's no reason.
So what happens with this new Novorich, the one who's just got the plot and he found traditional tenants and he doesn't want, he wants them off the land? Will he give them those certificates?
Well, one, he cannot actually evict them. So even if he doesn't,
it's been happening in Kayunga.
Even if he doesn't accept to give them the certificates, that tenant is still protected by the law.
Well, he doesn't have a certificate. They could come in the night and break down his house.
Those new landowners are required to respect the existing rights and interests of these bona fide owners that they find.
Just look at it. Case in Kayunga. The minister was told, or they told her there's a case in court. She tried to get people back onto their land. Their houses were broken down. What's going to happen in that kind of scenario?
No, I think it's not true that houses have been broken in Kayunga. Kayunga, the minister went there once. She inspected the land. She left before even issuance of that court order. Ever since that court order was issued, my minister has not been to that land in Kokotero, in Kayunga. Okay? So, contrary to what they say, well, my minister respects the court orders. She hasn't gone back, neither her agents have gone back to that land. So, it's not true.
Yes, Mr. Mulira.
My position is quite clear. Mr. Mr. Obo is right that the certificate of occupancy, you have to apply to me.
Yes.
But it also states a tenant in occupancy shall only be entitled to be issued with a certificate of occupancy if he or she has paid the ground rent for the land and has no arrears.
Yes.
Now, who sets the ground rent?
The government
It is the land board.
Yes.
And the land board has
5,000
not
shillings.
set any ground rent.
The land boards
Can I
have
say?
set. Yes.
Whatever. Okay, it has set.
Yes, they
Okay.
have set.
Let us have
law.
Suppose we have a dispute.
What do you mean? It's written down in the law.
But before we go into even
In
the
towns, 20,000. In the villages, 5,000. Some places, 2,000.
I have no problem with that. Some people have a problem with that. But if you go to the Busura and Mvujo law, the same system was used. So I have no problem with that. But what I am saying is that you are forcing on me a person who came on my land without my permission. And you are saying that simply because he has paid me the rent, maybe I have not even accepted it because I have no right to reject it. If it is tendered and I reject it, it is as good as having been paid. Now you are a person who came on my land by force and you want to get a certificate of occupation. And what you are going to have when you have a certificate of occupation is that you will have two types of registrable interest in the same piece of land.
Yes.
Now suppose I want to take my title deed to the bank to borrow some money.
It's encumbered.
It is encumbered. Why do you encumber me with a certificate of a person I do not like on my land?
Mr. Obo, what are we going to do with those?
Well, what I can say is that where somebody does not qualify as a bona fide or lawful tenant on registered land, the law actually provides that this person should take reasonable steps to look for the landowner and undertake negotiations with that owner in order to actually make sure that to regularize his stay on the land. So for those who you do not know, really it is upon those
tenants.
Yes, they are not even tenants because as long as you're not lawful, you're not bona fide. Those other categories, the licensees, the squatters, some call them so unlawful occupants, the illegal tenants, licensees, even people who come renting land, there are a lot of them. Those are not protected by the law. And as long as you want to remain, then you have to look for your landlord, negotiate your stay on your land. If the landlord says yes, then you pay Sulu, then definitely that one will qualify. But the other thing is that most of the landlords actually have not do not have the registers of their tenants, and I think that is a very big problem we have found. The number of them, they have not had their registers, because if they had their registers, it would make life easy for us, especially when it comes to verifying who are the rightful, the genuine ones. We don't deny there are those who come hiding, also wanting to benefit from this intervention. Those, if we identify and find, I think it was even clear in the president's statement, they will be punished by the law. So we are looking at those. As long you must have evidence that you are either lawful, bona fide. If not, we shall not entertain.
I'm very grateful to Mr. Obo because this is the stand we have already been taking. You have to be either lawful or bona fide occupant of land in order to be protected.
Yes.
And that's why we are saying, some of us, that the president's statement is unfortunate. Maybe because we talk about illegal evictions. Illegal evictions can only be in respect of lawful or bona fide occupants.
Yes.
And that is a person who has been paying rent to me, and I recognize him. Any other person who is on my land and he's not lawful or bona fide is not protected by law. And where do we go? We go to what we call the common law. The common law allows me to evict a trespasser on my land, yes, with the minimum of force. But when I do that, I'm told that I'm evicting peasants. But Let me add a rider. We don't, by the time we became independent, Uganda had only about 6 million people.
Yes.
And Buganda had maybe 1 million people. Today, Buganda has about 7-8 million people. There are so many people who have now come into the land market who need to be accommodated. And maybe some of the principles which applied prior to independence cannot reasonably apply today because of the sheer numbers. And that's why I'm saying, instead of making these political statements, attacking landlords, attacking this and that, let us sit down and talk together, landlords, government, tenants, and work out new rules of engagement between landlord and tenants. You cannot tell me that one minister appointed to go and sort out these things is going to sort them out. First of all, she dare not come to my land because she has no right to come on my land. It is a private land. My land is private land.
But you can't break
and
it
I'm
on
saying this in a good spirit to advise that we are going to have a multiplicity of legal actions against the poor minister. So instead of putting her in that situation, why don't you sit down with the interested people and work out rules of engagement which are going to be respected by everybody? If you want to clean up the commercial world, you don't just go and appoint a minister to go and harass traders in Kikubo. No. You engage the Chamber of Commerce, you engage the Uganda Chamber of Commerce, and that kind of thing. But here when it comes to land, we hear statements coming from politicians threatening landlords. I will not be threatened. I own that land because somebody paid for it. And I'm entitled to protection just as much as the president is entitled to protection.
So what are we going to do about this political?
Well, talk about rules of engagement. Whatever. Well, one, I would like to say that it's important that we first wait for these terms of reference and see what the terms of that committee are.
Yes.
And then to resettle.
Yes.
Evicted peasants.
To resettle the illegally evicted, lawful and bona fide tenants.
That is about 3/4 of the people on land.
Now, we definitely shall have a procedure. We're just not going to go. You need to do some research, investigation, find out how.
Meantime, the people who are evicted are living under trees.
You know, if you are to do this thing within the law, if you are to do it within the law, then you have to establish how these people came on the land, whether they are lawful, bona fide, identify them, remove them. Then you also have actually to engage the landowner.
You just told us some people come and buy land, they're not entitled to owning land here, and they want to set up factories and other things, plantations. They throw up these peasants, they have no interest in their stuff.
Those also need to be assisted. You know,
the investors.
Yes, they need to be assisted to be shown where to go. We also need
alternative land.
We also need the investors. We are not chasing anything. We need them. But what we shall do is actually help them regularize that. So there is no way a non-citizen can actually come and hold a Milo title, also start evicting, and you think that is not wrong. It's very wrong.
Can I mention one very important related point? You know, most of the land in Buganda prior to independence was owned by Baganda. And I'm not talking tribalism. Now, since the troubles which the country has gone through started, and because of economic problems, a lot of people have flocked into the central region.
Even economic development.
From wherever they are. And you'll find that most of the people who are being evicted are not traditionally from Buganda. Go to Seta. I'll give you an example, a place called Bweyogerere or Seta. That area is now Basania. It's full of Basania. And I have a client who has lost his Milo land. He cannot evict these people because if he tries to evict them, he's going to be accused of evicting people from their land.
You mean they just come and shop,
leave their land in some Samia,
They don't buy.
they can go back over Christmas to their land, to their plantation in Samia. And this Lubama family has lost out, and they cannot go to Samia and get land.
You mean they just, I'm familiar with Zeta, where I come from. People come and buy land from different parts of the country.
If you know a family called Lubama, you go and investigate there.
Let's hear from the listeners. This is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight. What are the implications of President Museveni's directive on land matters? You can call in now and contribute. Our numbers 0414-348-111, 031-226-0390, 031-226-1390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you are calling from. Before independence, Mr. Mulira, let's talk about, we have 3 land tenure systems. Can you elaborate those for us? 4 land tenure.
We have freehold, we have mile, we have customary, and we have leasehold. These are the registrable interests.
Is that a good system? In other countries, they have just one system.
No. That's not true. They always have either freehold and leasehold. Mile is special. Mile actually is freehold.
Mile is freehold, but it applies only in Buganda.
Yeah. No, in some parts of Ankole and Toro.
Spectrum, hello? Yes, your name? Dixon, yes? Very well, thanks. So, can you switch off your radio, please? Maybe you've investigated.
You find out that there are no reasons that there's no more defenders. And they are behind other people. So the statement after they are making, we have taken also the after to me, I think that they accuse of maybe eviction orders or what, the laws have actually largely come from the politicians who think that they are big, but they cannot be maybe judged for them they do after their eviction. Without interference. Thank you.
Alright, we'll get the response to that. Mr. Obo. Your politicians, you evict people, and then you get. Let's hear from another caller. Spectrum, hello? Hello? Yes, sir, your name? Yes, Mr. Nyakana. Can you switch off your radio, please, Mr. Nyakana? Can you switch off your radio and then talk to us? Go on. Go on. Go on. Yes, go on. You need to switch it off, otherwise we will not be able to hear from you. Go on, but switch off your radio and then talk to us. Go on. Alright, go on. Hello, Spectrum, hello. Good evening, your name?
I want to make a question to stop him from us.
Yes.
The president my name is Deacon.
Yes, Deacon.
Everyone in the president has the force of law. Therefore, they get the statement when they don't know what to say. Yes, to know which he is, I never put him at school. I thank you.
Let's get back to the Steve. Okay, one final caller. Spectrum, hello. Yes, your name?
This is Roger calling from Papa.
Yes, Roger.
Yeah, I just want to understand why sometimes when we see the eviction, we see how the men are wrong. Number one. Number two, some of them are taking place in the wee hours of like 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock when people are still sleeping. Why can't they do it during broad daylight so that people can have time like to move their things properly?
All right, let's get back to the studio. Mr. Alba.
Thank you. I think I'll begin with the last gentleman who talks of evictions taking place at night.
And soldiers.
I think that is wrong. Soldiers, also the army, it's wrong, and that's why I think if you look at, if you read the president's statement, there is a representative here on that committee from the army and police. It is specifically also to look at these people because it has been reported that individuals in the law enforcement agencies have also actually been involved in evictions. So where we have this sort of evidence being brought to us, those representatives should help us be able to contact those institutions and actually we see how best to address that matter. This is a very serious matter, really, because if an eviction is taking place at night, really,
illegal.
Very illegal.
Even Mr. Mulira agrees it's illegal.
Then there is also a procedure actually that's provided for in the law, really. People are not actually getting eviction orders from courts. They just come, get papers, and then, you know, wherever they get them from, I don't know. They wave these papers to people, they don't even say, you're supposed to move off. So I think it's important for people to know that there is also a timeline, 6 months.
You're supposed to be given 6 months.
Yes, at least 6 months.
To harvest your children.
From the date of that order, before you should be actually moved off. And then they should also meet the other expenses, damages of compensation, also as court may award. So I think in the law,
the person evicting should compensate the people who he's being sent away.
Yeah, to make sure that the person who is moving away moves away. Yes. What has been happening that we have also noticed is that these people actually, those who are evicted, the victims, they have been also going to the wrong offices. Yes, very few of them have actually been going to the magistrate's court of law as provided for in the law, the grade 1 magistrate and the chief magistrates. Instead, you find they've gone to, well, RDC. The RDC may help, he may stop, but you know, if you're looking for a real cure to help you, then you have to go to court. Now, the other question was,
well, it's politicians
the president's statement being a directive. Well, that one I don't know, but we shall definitely be implementing it in the ministry. Thank you.
Mr. Bossing has answered the questions, but let me just clarify. Compensation. The compensation is set by district councils. It is for crops, not for land. But in some cases now, RDCs are forcing people to compensate for the value of the land as well. I have a specific case on that. 2, the president talked about corrupt officials. I know of an LC chairman who, after the investor had agreed with the locals for compensation, and they signed agreements to move away, the LC chairman worked on them to reject the compensation and advised them to get a valuer who gave them 49 million, 99 million and the like. And then he went and contacted the Asian investor, called him to his house and told him, if you give me 20 million shillings, I'll sort out your problem. This is at Mukono, the RLC chairman.
And he wasn't telling the truth.
His name is Mr. Katumba.
He asked for only 20 million.
He asked for 20 million to sort out the Asians problem. So when the president talks about people are concentrating on...
Was that a good thing or a bad?
He talked about corrupt officials. And the policies have become so corrupt and they are causing a lot of these problems. Lastly, who are the lawful tenants? Let us agree the law section 29 defines who is a lawful tenant, and whoever is not covered by that section is not a lawful tenant. And if I evict him, I'm not committing any crime. It is not illegal eviction.
So which parts of the area, which parts of the country are going to be impacted most? Just give us an overview of that as we go.
The areas where most of these, as I've said, it's in Buganda. We've had the Wakiso district, we have the Ikwe district, Kayunga, Mukono, Mubende, Chankwanzi, even in Kapchora, Mukoma Nsimbi, Nakasongola, Chiboga, Mitiana, Mubende, Kalangala, and
all right. Okay. So what would you tell these people, the ones who've been evicting them?
Well,
in one statement, the honeymoon is over. Pack your bus. But talk to them.
As long as you are a lawful and or bona fide tenant, then definitely you will be protected by government and this committee. And this committee, although the terms of reference are out, I just want to assure that whatever it will do within the law.
We have to go. Thank you very much. That's Mr. Dennis Obo, spokesman for the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development. He stood in for the Minister, Honorable Daudi Migereko, who was not able to make it here in time. Thank you for coming, Spectrum. Mr. Peter Mulira, Senior Counsel, also a landowner, serious landowner in Mukono and other places. Thank you for coming to Spectrum. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host.
No last word. I just want to appeal to Mr. Bott, through Mr. Bott, to the government to involve all stakeholders in devising rules of engagement between landlords and tenants.
Thank you for tuning in. Spectrum will be back tomorrow.
Uganda Communications Commission is currently conducting nationwide mandatory SIM card registration.